All right. It's in the process and looks like it's saying it's going live. So, um, so awesome. A little backstage chat with Wayne before we actually go live. So if anybody just join us, wonderful. Um, and yeah, what I was saying, Wayne, is just backstage is, you know, a lot of things, and we were chatting before, and we covered a lot of topics. Um,
Yeah, we did.
but I just geek out. I don't want to go too deep into what I want to do in the show, but I'd love to go deeper. You know, if you, as much as you want to share on your process, I feel like a lot
Hmm.
of people lack the structure and process to have a reproducible result on hiring, and then
Hmm.
culture and all that. So the deeper you know, the more you're willing to unveil, the better.
Oh, you know, I don't mind sharing it all because it, all of us, competition, that, we all going after the same people, it doesn't matter, but everybody's going to be unique to themselves. And that's the first thing you got to identify that we learned a long time ago is you can't be like someone else.
That's
Quit
right.
trying to be someone else. Be you because
That's
that's what's got you where you are today.
that's right.
So understand that and build your culture around that. That's what it should be because that's what's going to attract. That's the reason why your customers like you. That's
That's
the reason
right.
why you're able to go do business. So
Yep.
the people that you want to work for you the same way. So that's basically what I did was I'm very family oriented and it's about family and taking care of it. So I use that same model in my culture. But and when the hiring process of it is probably where we struggled the most for a long time is we didn't have a very good process about how we was going to qualify someone to have the fit. We was always focused on can they technically do the job? Tech, 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 tech.
Yep.
And we found by, yeah, I can hire somebody that is great technical wise, but they got in and I spent more time dealing with frustrated people and frustrated customers than what I was expecting to have happen.
Mm-hmm.
So as we went along that, we changed our focus is first, do you have technical aptitude, but do you also have the personality to do the job we're going to ask you to do? Not only
Right.
the job, but with our people.
Right.
You know, you got to identify, and it's really one of these things where you're like, okay, you got a job that you're going to put a guy on the help desk or a lady on the help desk, right? Are they an introvert or extrovert?
Right.
Do they have patience?
Mm-hmm.
You know, what's their ability from being able to set goals? Are they aggressive, non-aggressive? Where are they at on these spectrums? Because if you're putting somebody that's an introvert on a phone, and I
Mm-hmm.
mean introvert all the way,
Mm-hmm.
introvert, you're putting the wrong person on that phone because they
Mm-hmm.
struggle just personally having
Mm-hmm.
conversations with people they don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So we really took that to heart straight going in there, and we use actually a tool from Criteria that's called Hire Select.
Mm-hmm.
And we went with them. We set up all the different tests for the different type jobs that we're hiring for. And we even ran them on ourselves to see where we set at. And it's very enlightening, by the way. But we started using that as our first qualifying piece is
Uh-huh.
take this quiz. It takes them about 15, 20 minutes
Mm-hmm.
and take those results.
Mm-hmm.
And it'll give you a zone where they fit.
Mm-hmm.
Well, of course, I'm an old engineer, so I like to tweak. I like to test. Is this really valid? So if they're in that zone, that's what you're really targeting. But are they on the barely touching the entry level of that zone, or are they on the upper side just above that zone? You'd think if they're above it, hey, that'd be great.
Right.
But if you hire that person, they've already surpassed that job.
That's
They're
right.
on to the next. You're actually hiring them for a job that they're going to be bored at.
Mm-hmm.
That's just as bad as hiring somebody that's not good at the job.
Right.
So we really went in and started trusting that process, put it into it. And then when they come in, then we evaluate what's their technical level ability. If they had the aptitude to learn and they understand, even if they don't know, how would they go about figuring it out? What would they do? And we learned that we got folks that fit the culture and how we do things and how we learn. And then we started teaching them our way to go
Mm-hmm.
do that. And when we started doing that, it's been tremendously successful for us. So it's not always they know the tech, It's can they learn the tech and do it in a manner that fits in your model, your
Right.
culture.
Right.
And once we did that, now we apply it to sales, we apply it to marketing, across the board, and it's worked out tremendously for us by doing it that way.
That's awesome. That didn't sound like something you learned on the first go round. So I wanna dig in. I want to save
No,
some of the stuff
you could
as the folks
tell
arrive.
a
But
lot of
yeah,
trails and tribulations.
yeah, yeah. That's really cool. Um, yeah, I love this topic. I geek out about it because I really believe
Mm-hmm.
the people are what make the company. And
100%.
oh man, especially as a tech person, it's easy to spot the tech skills, right? It's really easy to do
Yeah.
that. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, um,
Probably what got me to learn it is, hiring techs, I never really had a problem with that. When I realized I didn't realize I had a problem in how I was hiring techs until I started trying to hire sales and marketing
mm,
because they're just a totally different beast, right?
mm-hmm,
I knew how to communicate and what to look for in the technical side, but when I started trying to look at the others as I'm growing my business and bringing that up, that's when I started realizing, okay, I'm approaching this wrong. It didn't click. And that's when I started researching, how do I do this? What's the better way to go off and do it? And so you'll find if you're hiring in what you're comfortable in doing, you'll be blind to some of the things you should look for.
right.
And by hiring outside of what I'm comfortable with and learning that piece, that's when I started realizing, okay, I got to figure out a different way of doing this.
Right. Right. Well, for you guys just arriving, you haven't missed much with a little backstage stuff that we've been kind of talking about, but we got a lot of folks arriving, so you're not late in any way there. We're going to kind of kick off the official beginning and the countdown here, guys, and then we're going to get into the nitty gritty. So hang tight. We'll be
Cool.
back 1 second. Hey guys, thanks for being here today on this episode of MSP Mindset. We're talking all things hiring and culture with Wayne Hunter, the founder and CEO of AvTek Solutions. So before I dive in, just a quick note, this has been DamienStevens.live and it's now rebranded MSP Mindset with Damien Stevens, just because it's really about MSP. And if you're willing to change your mindset, you'll probably change your business. If you're used to tuning in, that you're on the right show here. So before I bring in Wayne, just to kind of give you a little introduction, he's got a little over 30 years experience in IT, so he should know some things. He's the captain of an accountability group in Robin Robbins. I thought this was interesting. It's maybe not the normal bio stuff, but he served our Navy. So I always appreciate anybody who served in our military. But he was in advanced electronics, especially specifically worked with sonar. He's an advisor and on an advisory board of at least 3 different companies. He's been featured in MSP Success magazine and is co-author of a book, Exploited. So he talks a lot about security and that sort of thing, and has built a tried and true system that he uses to find the best people. So I'm sure I can talk more, but without further ado, let me introduce Wayne Hunter.
How's it going?
Wayne, thanks for being here. I know that you're a busy
Oh,
guy. I think we've got you in your hotel room coming live from
yeah,
San Antonio.
that's correct.
So we are crossing our fingers the Wi-Fi stays working. So thank you for doing that. I'm in Greenville, South Carolina, and Wayne is in San Antonio. Anybody else tuning in live, feel free to drop in where you are, where you're coming from, or just say hello. So got a few folks talking. Morgan said hi to us. And I think Zeke was saying something back at Morgan. And and just wanted to acknowledge Lauren, who's joining us on YouTube. So,
Excellent.
so just to kind of dig in, I wanted to talk about something that I feel like some people don't realize how challenging it is, at least the people that haven't tried to hire. But this is something really near and dear to me because I think you share this belief, but my belief is the people make the company. So therefore,
Absolutely.
the quality of the people determines the quality of everything else. And
Mhm.
man, I thought getting customers would be hard, and that getting the people might be the easier thing. And
Yeah.
that didn't always turn out to be the case for me, at least. So, so tell me about your hiring process, and give me some background. Like, were you always a
Okay.
savant in hiring? How'd you?
Huh.
Let's start with
Not
that. Like,
even remote, man. Not even remotely close. This is my second company, and as I've done this for years and learning, is as a tech, and coming in there and had an entrepreneur nine, I hiring technical people. It seemed like it was good and easy for me to go do, but it's what I know.
mm-hmm,
But I also, because of that, I was kind of blind to some things that I didn't realize earlier in my career and while building the company. But when it really came to focus that I was really off the mark at what I was doing, and we're talking culture as well as part of this process, is that when I started trying to hire sales and marketing folks, that's when I started realizing, okay, I'm missing something in this whole process. And we always tried to hire based on your technical abilities. That's what we focused on because we wanted to hire people that could hit the floor running, get a job done, do that. But
mm-hmm,
what I found over years as we was doing this is I was always fighting frustrations inside the company. Um, People were clashing all the time, things of that nature. And so when we sat back and really took a look at it, we were like, okay, we got to change our mindset about what we're doing here. What's important to us? What did I start a business for? Well, obviously, we all start a business to make money, but what did I want as an owner? What did I need that's going to help me make this successful? And my wife actually kind of helped me with this, where we sit there and says, well, you're a family man. Your family's big to you. You treat your people that work for you the same way as family. So isn't family core? And so as I started thinking about that, that's really what we do. And that's really what I want is I wanted to have that environment that, our people, not only at work, but if they have personal issues, stuff like this, I want them to understand that I'm here for them. So
mm-hmm,
we adjusted from that and started looking. It's like, how can we do it? And I actually, some of the peer groups I'm in, and there was an individual I met, and he was telling me about this tool he was using. And so I went and looked at it. And for those out there, there's a company called Criteria, and they have a product called Hire Select. Great tool. But what it focuses on was more about the culture side of the business, not necessarily did they know something technically.
mm-hmm,
It allows us to quiz them on their aptitude, cognitive aptitude, but also on their personality. So how does that apply from a culture standpoint? Well, from a culture standpoint, the easiest way to say it is if I'm hiring a help desk person, what's their primary job? They're going to be on the phone talking to people. They got to be able to deal with confrontation. They got to have a good patience. Their stress tolerance is good. Um, and they got to have that, ability to speak to people they don't know. So in that testing, if it comes up, not this person technically is fantastic, but they're a all the way left side introvert. Are they going to be good on the phone? Well, they might could fake it and they could do it, but that's going to stress that person out to the point where they don't want to do it. So therefore it's going to start suffering, things of that nature. So that's when we started really looking at that and
Mm-hmm.
understanding for what the job was. The testing is built based on that type of job from CEO level down to help desk to janitor, whatever. They'll build it out. And we started testing that way. Our hire rate, our turnover rate has gone to nothing. I mean, we get people, they're here and they're growing in the business. There's things that we put in place, and there's some other things we'll talk about on what we changed our culture to help that. But that's probably been the biggest change I've made was instead of just hiring based on their technical ability, hire based on their personality and do they fit the culture of what we want for the company. And when we did that, it's been fantastic.
Nice. Nice. So, hiring for a fit of the culture, and why? Why did you need to change? Why didn't you keep doing what you were doing?
I'll
Right.
give
I
you,
want to
well,
understand that
well,
first.
so you get a phone call um, from a customer and they're asking you why you don't want to sell something to them. Okay, first, wait a minute. Of course I want to sell you stuff. What are you talking about?
Right.
And then they talked to our finance that was running finance at one time, and they was wanting to set up to one of them. She says, "No, no, we don't want to do that for you. You need to call somebody else." Mm, wow, that hurts,
Right.
especially when it's stuff we want to do. And the reason why that happened is that the finance person, didn't like the finance person at that company. Well, I do stuff for people I don't like all the time. It's not a personal thing, but all of a sudden the culture inside that started feeding into others and it
Right.
created animosity. So when you start looking at if you got one person not happy, either it could have been a home issue, it can be whatever, but it brought it in. That starts things that you have to deal with and actually hurts the business. So from that standpoint to where you're hiring someone in, they get in and then they're doing inappropriate things in office and talking to customers inappropriately, having to deal with those. I mean, there's
What
been
do you
all
mean by
kinds of
that?
scenarios you didn't. Well, they just talk disrespectfully to the customer. You're an idiot.
Mm.
Why? What do you mean you can't do this? Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
We've all been on the
Things
other
like
end of
that
that.
happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
It's not like it's something new,
Right.
but when you can head that off and find the right people to fit that culture and how you do things, and they
Mm-hmm.
have the aptitude to do it better. I mean, nothing's 100%,
Mm-hmm.
okay, but you're positioning yourself in a better position to have the right people that fit
Mm-hmm.
that culture of how you want to do things.
Mm-hmm.
So those are examples of what you get into when you're not looking at those things, and that's the
So is
reason
that
why
what
we went
drove
off
you
and
to
did
make a
it that way.
change?
Oh yeah, all kinds of things like that drove us to make the change. um, Lots of times you get people in how they do things to be, I guess the way I would look at proactive
Mm-hmm.
in the culture. So one of the things we did, and it drives into our culture, is our when we hire someone, we don't just do annual raises. Okay, because to me, everybody they'll get by to the end of the year and say, okay, I'm due a raise. Okay, come into that. Well, we have the belief of when we hire someone, we hire them for a reason. We believe they have the ability to go do things and have a growth path. So we're going to incentivize you to do not only your base level training that you need to have for the position we hired you for, but we incentivize you to do additional training, to grow up the path and show you can do the work. And if you can show you do the work, you got the customer sat to it, and you're doing things above and beyond what you normally do. If that's 3 months in, we're going to adjust your pay to what you're doing at that point in time. So now you have control on how you progress within our organization. That's part of our culture. We want everybody driving up the ladder, because if they're doing that, the thing I love the best is I get a call from a customer like I did the other day. It says, DeAndre has been fantastic. Now, DeAndre's only been with us probably 6 months, and he started at a certain level. But what I got this call about was something he didn't know how to do when he first got hired, but he's been doing the training, stepping it up, and now he's able to do that.
Isn't that awesome?
And he's done that because he knows we've got his back. That's the culture of what we've built. So these days, the silent quitting, we all deal with that. I've been dealing with that. I used a hire select, hired somebody, and they were actually killing it. It was a marketing person. They were booking first-time appointments 1 a week, every week.
Wow.
Doing great. I was about to promote to a marketing coordinator. One day she didn't show up. Finally got over 3 weeks later, because I had actually a wellness check done on her. Oh, I decided I didn't want to work anymore. So it's not perfect.
Yeah.
And it shocked everybody that she fit the culture and everything. She was working great in the company, but also sometimes stuff happens and it go away. So nothing we're doing is perfect, but this has been phenomenal for the business, not only for internal and how we operate as a team, but I could care less if the customers know my name. I love it when they know my people's name.
Right.
And that's what that culture is driving.
So just to take a comment real quickly, Morgan says, so what I'm hearing is don't hire jerks. That's probably good advice, but maybe a little more to it.
Am I being too PC? Is that the outcome?
No, it's just a comment I was featuring, but yeah, we've all been on the other side of that, right? So,
Absolutely.
The way I look at it, this is your story. There's no right or wrong. It's just your story.
Yeah, exactly.
So keep the comments coming. Yeah. So this hiring Select Plus is a big part of it. And then, spill your secrets. Like, how do you find them? How do you, I feel like a lot of people go, oh man, I put up an ad and I don't get anybody good. Right. And
I've used ZipRecruiter. I've used Indeed. I've used a bunch of different tools. And I'm not a big fan of Indeed and ZipRecruiter, really not, because the amount of junk, I had another choice word, but junk that you get from it. You call people and they going, well, how'd you get my resume? Well, I'm not looking for a job. I said, well, it's ZipRecruiter sent it to me saying you're looking for the job. If you're not looking for a job, take it off.
Right.
Don't have it there. And it's just, the amount of resumes we've gone through is just insane. Matter of fact, when we do, sometimes every once in a while, we'll shake it up and we'll go use it again. I have someone that takes all those and filters through them first before I ever look at them, because it's just a waste of time having to go through 500 of them to get 3. And so what I started doing is I use the job postings on LinkedIn. That's what I've been the most successful with. And I set it up on there, put out the job posting. I get people coming into it. I use the qualifying questions that LinkedIn has. And I set it up based on that list. And if they don't match those, I have it automatically reject. If they're not, I'm sorry, when I say I need someone in DFW and you're applying for the job from India, well, obviously you didn't read the post. So right off the bat, you've missed some criteria. So I do it that way and come into it. And then when those come up, I look at the ones that the resume's there, and then I send them the hire select quiz. They go off and do that. If they do well in that, then I do an initial phone interview myself with them. I only ask them about 3 or 4 questions. And then from there, if that's really starting to get a feel for culture of them, and does that match up to what I see in the test? And if that matches up and they've done some homework.
Hang on 1 second, Wayne, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
So you send them this assessment. So a couple of things. Let me just try to break this down. So if you want a lot of resumes, go to Indeed or ZipRecruiter, if that's what I'm hearing.
Yep.
And thanks, Morgan, for the comment saying she loves the candidate insight. That's what we need. So LinkedIn gives you better, right? We're live on LinkedIn now. Lots of people are watching now, and so that's giving you the better candidates, because a lot of people just start with, I don't even get good candidates. So you finally will get some good candidates using LinkedIn. Is that right?
You got to look at what you're looking for. Like typically I found most all my tier one help desk off of LinkedIn. That's because of my BDR, SDRs, the business development or sales development reps. I've pulled from LinkedIn. Customer success managers, I've pulled from LinkedIn and got phenomenal response in those. When you start looking, what I've found is where I'm learning now is when you're looking for like tier three folks that got extraordinary technical requirements that can lead projects and do projects themselves without having to have much input from others.
Mm-hmm.
I don't find them as much on LinkedIn as I do. I get more response, a better response out of ones coming either from LinkedIn or ZipRecruiter. Indeed or ZipRecruiter. But also, what I do is I have relationships to folks that their whole business is placing bodies. They go in on whether it be projects, short-term contracts, whatever there. And because of those relationships I've built over the years, I can also let them know, say, hey, here's what I'm looking for. If you know someone, send me some resumes. But it's for a full-time job. It's not a contract job. It's a W-2 job, and doing there. So what you got to do is like anything else you do out there is cultivate relationships. If you find someone, someone that's their business is placing bodies into jobs, build a relationship with them and come
Mm-hmm.
into that, because lots of times what you can do, because this is not your typical headhunter that I'm looking for, that I'm
Okay.
talking about either. These are people that their business is, they got a whole network of this. They go out and find contracts. They put the people in that contract. And they're making money. They're the prime on the contract. That's different than when you have, a Robert Half or something like that, that is just, what I call them, they're a high-end Indeed or ZipRecruiter because they're managing the process instead of just letting the website do it for you. Okay. So get those relationships and coming into it. So you have to look at what I'm learning is it's all depending upon the resource that you're looking for, the specific job. Some places are better than others, and that's just from doing it and learning it.
Okay. Yeah. So Lauren's tuned in, and so she was just asking, are we talking recruiters? Because I know you are kind of talking
No,
about recruiters, but it doesn't sound like you are. Right? So help us
no,
understand that.
and it's a perfect question, and that's kind of what I was trying to explain is your typical recruiters, which are going to take 15 to now somewhere in 30%. I actually saw one coming to the other day was 50% on first year. And I'm like, this is crazy.
Yeah.
Um, what I'm talking about is I have a friend of mine and his whole company, what he does about 20 million a year, but he actually goes and gets the contracts. He gets on state contracts. There's private company contracts where they need a team of resources to go in on contract and do that project. He actually he's got a whole network of people that are contractors. He brings them in, puts them on a contract, and manages that contract. So he's not trying to place the body as a W-2. He's fulfilling a contract, and he has a whole network of those folks. I've spent time talking with him. It's like, hey, if I need somebody, could you get me someone? And I
Mm-hmm.
built that relationship, and he'll do it for me.
Okay.
you know. And so it's just one of those things I've done. So it's not a typical recruiter that I'm talking to. And it's a harder relationship to find because you got to really look for it. I got me and him happen to sit on the same board together. So it's a harder thing to do. Um, the recruiters, I've never, and I got a good friend of mine that's a recruiter, and he's heard me say this one, I've never had a good recruiter.
Mm-hmm.
Because what their job is to get a body placed because they make their commission off of it. So anytime I've seen a recruiter, I can look and tell them what I'm looking for, and I can tell when the resume has been edited to fit what I
Yes.
asked for.
Yes.
Right? We've
Yes. I've
all
seen
seen it.
that. Yep.
So I'm not a fan of the recruiter firms. I've never have been. I'd rather take the time and try to find them. I'd rather weed through Indeed and ZipRecruiter than work through a recruiter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
That's my
I'm with you on
personally.
that.
That's for me. Everybody's different, but that personally, that's how I approach it.
I couldn't agree more. I think it's also tough to get the culture you're looking for when you hand it off to a recruiter.
Yeah, yeah. But anybody I use these days, everybody. I actually had an individual on LinkedIn come to me, and I was posted a job, come in, and they applied. So I sent them the link to the quiz. I had to take the quiz, and they replied to me within a few minutes. Says, "I don't need to take no quiz. I'm overqualified qualified for you." I said, "How do I know if you don't take the quiz?"
Right.
And he got pushback. And I finally, a lot of time there's bullies there. And I said, "Look, this is our process. If you don't like the process, that's totally okay. That's your opinion. I'm told that's totally cool. But this is how we do it."
Mm-hmm.
"Oh, okay, I'll take your quiz." And I'm like, "Well, you can take it, but you've already told me I don't want to hire you. I don't have to
Yeah.
look at the results."
Yeah.
But
That's right.
it's those things. You still deal with some of those things, regardless of what platform you're on.
Right.
Okay. But the biggest thing is stick to your guns. No matter how bad you need that person,
Mm.
stick to your process.
But come on, Wayne. Sometimes I really need them today. I mean, can't you jump? Can't you shortcut that process?
I can tell you this, every time I've done it, it has bit me where you don't want to be bitten.
I have some of those hard knocks as well for sure.
Exactly.
Um,
We all have, everybody.
I wanted to take another comment. I think this was back to the prior discussion, Lauren, talking about your, not recruiter, but you were talking about different folks, and so she said, so like 1099 team to get a job done, like a temporary
Yeah,
team.
that's the typical. That's exactly what they do. Is they're 1099 contractors, stuff like this. I have a lot of relationships where I have folks that they never want to do W-2. They're 1099. I have a SQL database guy that is just phenomenal, and he's 1099. I've had him on 1099 forever, and go do that. But if I'm looking truly for a W-2, I'm pulling from that 1099 pool. That's exactly the type of person I'm talking about.
Okay, gotcha. Um, so and then keep your questions coming. We'll try to get to as many as we can.
Yeah, great questions.
Morgan saying, so it sounds like having someone manage the important processes for you seems like a pretty solid idea.
It's in the way that we manage our processes, Morgan, because having we're like you said at the intro, I was in the Navy. I was actually on submarines, and so process and procedures are extremely important to live. Um, when you intentionally sink a boat, yeah, you want to make sure the processes are right, and
Right.
it's kind of followed me everywhere I go. Uh, but we as in our group, we have our processes and we go through it. And it starts even with me is when we started figuring out how we was going to hire process. We tried to figure out what is the method we was going to use to make sure that process went through. We've tried a bunch of different ways, and what ended up working was when we did this process, we put it out there. Those ideas come in. I actually take the first initiative, review them, take the quiz, and look at how it's going to do from a cultural standpoint, and then have the initial interview. And I ask them only about 4 questions. That's it. It's short, 15 to 30-minute conversation. And then from there, I hand it off to the group, and one person, the service manager, they will actually take it and do a group interview. If it's sales and marketing, I have my service manager, my operations manager, and one of my senior techs, and do a group interview. So have that three-tier effect has worked out extremely well because there's what I'm going to approach to, what the team that they're going to work with, and having multiple of them having those questions, having those culture questions they talk about and come into it. And then we bring that back together. And if we all like, this is great, then whoever the hiring position manager is, whether it's services, whether it's ops, whether it's sales, that person and myself have a final conversation with the interviewee and go over things. And that's when we also go into, what our benefits and all that kind of stuff and go into it and then go to the offer. And that process, we've had that process. We turn around it all in a day to some that may take 2 or 3 days that we go through. But it's worked extremely well and we stick to it regardless. It does not matter. We do it every time and it works very well. So define that process. That's mine. Yours could be different, but build it, have it, and follow it.
Right.
And it really made a difference for us.
So one question we had from Lauren again was, so does a 1099 temporary team, actually wrong comment here. How does having a 1099 team impact your company culture? Are you hiring
The
1099 and
night
does that
way,
affect culture, or is this a
well,
pool and you're really saying they're all W-2 or?
most of all my people are W-2, but I do have 1099s coming into that, and those are very specific ways. But when we get with the 1099, we still have some of the same conversations, and it's not so much about culture from a standpoint of if they're an employee and we're working with them every day, but it's more about the culture of a project team, and within that team, how they're going to work, how they're going to communicate, and those. So we still hit them up and try to understand the same thing.
Okay.
So it's still important to go do that, because if you get someone who's very good, but they're not going to communicate, they're not going to follow our process to update the system. So we're tracking the time and doing those things. It could pull down a project. So we still apply the same things. We just tweak the questions a little bit instead of the W-2 type things, internal employee all the time. We tweak it more to a project scenario and communication scenario and what's going on, but it's still the same process.
Okay. And you were talking about you've got this assessment, you pick up the phone and have a conversation. We ask a few questions about culture. The heck is culture mean to you? It seems like it's a little bit different for everybody. And if I ask everybody what culture is, I get a different answer.
Some of it's subjective, okay, because it's really about yourself and how you are and coming into this and into that. But give you an example of one of the questions I asked. One of the first questions I asked them to say, what do you like about your current job and what do you dislike about your current job? Okay. If a person comes and says, I hate this freaking job, that my manager's, he's a-hole and blah, 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 I'm like, that's a red flag.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You got someone that still, technically and what they're doing coming in, I believe in all this. This has been, I got trial. I want to accomplish this, and it's just the where I'm at right now won't allow me to go there, proceed there. I have no growth, and they put it in. I hate to use the term, but a PC, politically correct way of answering the question. Now I got someone that understands how to communicate, adapt to the situation, but still get their point across in a very respectful way. Now you just told me something. Just between those two different things, I now have someone that's going to fit more into our culture, not sugarcoating anything, not hiding anything, but get a point across that others can join into communication. It's not adversarial right off the bat. So that's a good example of how culture starts off with me, is how do you communicate? Now, does that match up to what was in the quiz? And right off the bat, now I'm saying, okay, this ticking tide. And then I keep moving on. So part of your culture is what's your communication culture? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
What is your approach to doing a job, completing a project? There's different things you're looking at. How do you solve a problem? Is it, I'll just call him and give it to him, and he tells me the answer, and I go off and do that? Or is, here's what I'm going to do and go until I need help, and I'm going to stay engaged with the problem because I want to learn so I can be better as I move along.
Mm-hmm.
Those are all things you look and you ask the questions that start going to culture for us, if that makes sense. Everybody else is the same. They just might not have called that culture before. I know I didn't. To me, I didn't realize that was culture until I started sitting down and really taking a look and talking to my peers and talking to others that I know in the industry, and started asking the questions about culture. And that's how I developed. I didn't develop myself. I listened and learned from others to figure out what it meant. And then once I got that and understood it, it made a huge difference.
Yeah. So Morgan just dropped a comment and she says, it sounds like a general sense of optimism is important for the applicant.
I am a half full guy. That is true. There is And I think in a culture, you've got to have the combination of both. You got to have that half full and that half empty, because to me, there's not a problem we can't solve. We just got to go find the answer.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe in my people wholeheartedly. They have my full trust until they give me a reason not to.
Mm-hmm.
So that optimism, it's got to be there. I like that word, a choice of words, Morgan, because that's a very positive thing that you got to have. If you don't have optimism, and one thing's about a leader, you think about this, is if you're a leader, you got to lead by example. If
Mm-hmm.
you're pessimistic, your whole company is going to be pessimistic. If
That's right.
you're optimistic, then they're going to inherit that optimistic approach. So that's one of the things that you really got to take in. And I think that's a very important point that she made there, is that optimism's got to be there.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. What was the hardest part? What was the most surprising as you were building this process? It just wasn't intuitive or natural, and um, your hiring and recruiting process.
I think the part that I was worried about the most, that actually surprised me the most, is I was worried about my existing team, how they were going to adapt to it, what they thought about the process and taking it and going and doing this. And what I found was they embraced it wholeheartedly, because
Nice.
it turned out, they're sitting going, that's what we're missing, is we got to make sure people fit before we just bring them in. My core team, most of my core team has been with me 13, 14 years.
Wow. That's a little
We've been
more
in
than the
business,
average of about two.
we'll be, March will be 19 years we've been in business with this company. So
Wow.
that kind of gives you an aspect. Um, so it's when we really looked at that, and back years and years ago before we started doing this, we had turnover. We'd hire somebody, we find out they didn't fit, they figured out they didn't fit, and they would go, they'd leave, and
What was
whenever it left,
turnover
all of a
like
sudden,
before
oh,
this?
I would typically, if I go back and look at my list over the last 19 years, I probably got a list of 20, 25 people that's come in and left.
Mm-hmm.
Sales was the biggest, and I guess another one of the things you learn is, as a owner of a business, is I thought salespeople were like me, go sell. What I
Mm-hmm.
figured out and with a baseball bat world by friends of mine saying, you're dumb, you're not doing this right, they can't be you.
Right.
um, because I can go into a room and sit with CX level people and sit with, technical people, and I can make them all shake their head at the same time. They all understand what I'm talking about. I
Mm-hmm.
thought that's, I'm just a dumb boy from the backwoods of Louisiana. I thought everybody could do this. I'm not the smartest guy on the planet. Um, but then I learned this is like, your salespeople, they can't do that. And
Mm-hmm.
my brother-in-law told me one time, we were sitting there, he and I about once a month get together and we talk, and we just talk business. He's an entrepreneur, and we just talk about stuff and just over a bourbon and just have a good conversation. And he says, look, salespeople, what is it, what they do, how's it do it? But what it does in there and how it gets implemented, they don't know that like you do. You
Mm-hmm.
got to give them the right tools. And then it's like, oh, wait a minute. Okay, let's step back. Part of the culture and allowing people to build that culture is give them tools that allows them to do it in a way that they understand.
Mm.
So how you deal with sales is much different than how you deal with your technical, your
Right.
ops, this. So part of culture is understanding the different pieces that make the one culture. They're not all going to be the same. They're not going to fit all in the same little square hole. You got triangles and you got stars and you got rounds and you got all these. You got to figure out how to put all those where now you got all sitting in one place and they all function together.
So you're saying
That's the
that
hard part.
the kind of stereotypical tech that may not that maybe a super introvert and the extroverted, you know, center of attention
Mm-hmm.
salesperson may be stereotyped. There are obviously exceptions in both of those, but they don't have to be the same.
Mm-hmm.
They don't all have to be the same shape or fit in the same
Right.
role.
Totally agree. That's one thing is just looking at that whole culture piece is putting the right people in the right place to be successful.
Right. So what does that look like? What was the biggest secret, or you felt like, you know, how, because as you told me, you'll be able to retain people, you've been able to hire them
Mm-hmm.
to scale your business. And it's improved lately, but in the past, like since COVID until maybe recently, and for a lot of people since then, a lot of MSPs, they've been telling me I can't take any more new business because I can't find people at all, or I can find warm bodies, but I can't find anybody that's either good enough or at all a culture fit if they happen to even be looking for that. But I think most people just said I can't even get the people. So they've crazy times I never thought it would be, but they've really said we can't take any more business.
I hear that all the time with
Mm.
my peers that I'm sitting with, and it goes on. Matter of fact, one of the peer you was talking about. Run a certified captain group with Robin Robbins, and we were just interviewing a potential new member to our accountability group, and that's exactly where he's at. He says, "I can't take any on my business because I can't find anybody to deliver the business I have today."
Mm.
And we were looking at it and going back again, and it's going back to where we reevaluated when we bring somebody on how we're going to do it, and we can't. You have two ways of hiring. The old way of looking at it, either you build it, then you sell to it, or you sell and then hire as you sell. Okay, both of them have their own issues, right?
Yes.
You can't do, the old manufacturing side. I worked in a supercomputer company, and in manufacturing we had just-in-time manufacturing, JIT. Well, you would be able to go hire when you need, basically go do it and do that whole process. Well, that's not how it works today. And so trying to hire that technical ability, exactly what you need in the right side place, plus you got the other problem of these bigger MSPs, these super MSPs are out there, and they're offering ridiculous amount of money
Mm-hmm.
to folks onto positions that actually they can't do. But you can't tell them, you know, no, you can't go take that job. Sure, you gotta go take it. You can't deny anybody that. But that's
Right.
that other piece. It's the poaching that way as well.
Mm-hmm.
So as much as we're trying to, what we found is I'm trying to hire, I'm taking the two and trying to meld it a little bit of both. So I'm starting to hire based on our trend and contracts. I'm just going to go ahead and start hiring when I think my forecast might close. Now I'm using my sales forecast to help me in my hiring process, but I'm not hiring it when I'm closing the deal. But I want to hire someone that's going to have the culture fit, and based on where they are technically, I'll teach them what I need to set out a plan that's going to teach them to be ready when
Mm-hmm.
I'm closing business. And that's what we're doing today. Now, is it perfect? No. Right now we need a tier three as bad as, anybody. And we're
Yeah, those are
interviewing
hard
and
to
we're
come
going to
by.
do it, but they're hard to come by, especially because we do a lot of high end VMware virtualization, VDI, network infrastructure as well. Because I'm not just an MSP, I'm a VAR and MSP, and I've come from that enterprise space. So we got a lot of large enterprise customers we do stuff for too. So I've got a hybrid of the two. And so doing that. So it's one of those things where I'm in hiring mode all the time. If you look at my LinkedIn, you see hiring by my picture always, because
Mm-hmm.
I'm always in the hiring mode. That's the difference now. Is I can't say, oh, hire when I'm done, I'll wait until I might. I'm in hiring mode, evaluation mode the whole time,
Mm-hmm.
because I know I'm not going to quit selling. My team, we had what we call our State of the Union, and I brought my whole team, their families, and we rented a huge cabin in Broken Bow this year. And we all come up there and we cooked out. We had working sessions, planning sessions, all this, and just had a great time. And my technical team said, "Hey, we need you to stop selling for a little bit and let us catch up." And I'm like, "No."
Right.
And what do you mean, no? I said, "Stop selling is not how you fix the problem. Let's discuss what the problem is and figure out what to resolve. But I'm not going to stop selling because it takes me 3 times as long to get back to where I am than just keep selling and solve the problem that we got."
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So as we've seen this and be able to close, because we closed 34 grand of recurring revenue in December. So
Wow.
yeah, I've got them loaded up right now,
Yeah.
onboarding and doing some
That's a
stuff.
ton.
So
Some people, that's their entire
it's
company. That
uh,
much, that
well,
much
it's
more.
more. We did 4.2 million last year, and there's a total of 8 of us, including me. So
Wow.
we're very small and very efficient in what we're doing, but we're growing.
Right.
So uh, I'm hiring all the time. I think you have to take a mentality to be able to get past this issue of finding people is you just got to get this process down that we've been talking about, and just always being hiring mode.
Mm-hmm.
Be
True.
willing to bring them on when you find the right one, and knowing what your forecast is, knowing what your numbers are, and selling,
Right.
and just make those two work together. And that's what we're doing now.
Yeah. So we were talking backstage. Speaking of hiring, one of the things we were talking about something a little different, but related to all the things your people have to do. And I think you were saying you had some war stories or scars to share around backup or DR. Um, so, anything you're willing to share there?
Well, anybody who's been in business had war stories and come into it. In my previous company, I'll never forget. And this is back when, I don't know if everybody on here is going to know what I'm talking about. I have a physical fax machine at the office, and we walked in one morning. And it's about 7:30 in the morning. We walked in, and there's a fax on the fax machine. We went over and picked it up, and it just said, "Please help, data gone." And it's Sam, phone number.
Wow.
Okay. So you call in and start doing this, and you go into it, and of course, we was able to get them back up. But it's one of these things is when
Was
you
that a
first see
normal way to
something like
log a
that,
ticket?
yeah, that wasn't quite the way to do it, but it was kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Um, but in this day and age, we all got the tools in there. We got communication process, but horror stories, the biggest ones around hacking these days, and probably the biggest scare we've had here lately. We had one of our big enterprise customers, and we'd been talking to them for years. You need to put this security stack in. You know, Windows Defender and your Sophos is not enough.
Mm-hmm.
But you keep going, you going. But since we'd set up their whole infrastructure for the VMware and their VDI and all this, and the storage arrays we put in there, and we set them up with the snapshots, and we made sure that that framework did not have the same passwords and access of what they had the other. We got a phone call, and it was on a Saturday afternoon at 3:30. I'll never
Isn't it
forget. I'm
always
sitting
on the
in my
weekend?
chair, and I'm watching a football game,
Uh-huh.
college football game, and Ryan calls me and says, "Wayne, we've been hacked." I'm like, "Okay." He says, "All of our systems are locked." I'm like, "Okay, let me call my Andy, and we'll get back. We'll get with it." So we get in there. Sure enough, all their desktops were locked out. Their backups were locked. They didn't have anything on immutable storage. The admin passwords to it were the same as everything else. So we get in and start looking, and so first thing we went in is look at the snapshot setups we had on the storage arrays, and they were good. 2 hours later, we had them back up and running.
Yeah.
But just because we had followed a process to make sure that piece was not the same as that, and they couldn't get to it, so they hadn't been able to manage to hack that piece yet. Now, if they hadn't, we went and looked, they hadn't even touched it yet. I don't think they even knew it was there,
Mm.
and we was able to get back. But the scary part of that is when you're telling somebody it's not a matter of when, it's going to happen,
Mm-hmm.
and you cannot get them to see it.
Mm-hmm.
And then they come in, and he goes in and it's like, okay, everything's locked. Oh crap, how are we gonna get it back? And
Yeah.
this is a multi-million-dollar company. you know they do about $1 million a year with us.
Wow.
That's scary.
Yeah.
You set up, and now all of a sudden you got diamond, tucked seats where you were sitting because it's so scary.
Yeah.
uh, but it's one of those things is your process worked,
Right.
and now it's a believer, and you can go off of that. But those are the horror stories typically come from, no matter how much and how blue in the face you get and trying to get someone to understand, and I'm sure everybody listening's got those customers. What is the one thing? Find the one thing you can do that's going to give you at least some peace of mind that you got some piece of it protected.
Mm-hmm.
Figure out how to do that, at least that one thing, and that makes it easier to sleep at night.
Yeah.
But those are things I worry about today. And every time I hear someone saying my files are going this, I kind of hold my breath. But most of our customers, what we do now is any of our customers that we do managed services with, if they don't take our security stack, I don't do business with them.
Yeah. That makes a
Period.
ton of sense.
Period.
So
Well, we got to these days because whether
they're
you
going to
know it
blame
or
you.
not, well, Congress is going to blame you. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, the bill was passed and set up defining MSP, what MSP is now. So we're now defined in Congress as an entity. But because of that, the things come down to we now have shared responsibility. We
Mm.
inherit shared responsibility because if you're doing an MSP and you're doing those services, you're just as responsible.
Mm.
So am I going to be responsible for them if they're not going to use my security stack? Nope,
Right. So,
won't do it.
Lauren comment: Windows Defender. You mean it's not enough? Yeah.
Hey, I will say something about Windows Defender.
Yeah.
They have improved Windows Defender greatly. Okay,
Absolutely.
but
Yeah.
Windows Defender, I have it feed into my SOC, into my
Mm-hmm.
Blackpoint SOC. So I always believe in a layered approach.
Right.
So putting those things in there, no antivirus or even your enhanced ones by themselves are enough these days. You really got to look at how you're layering those things up and having it because they all have their own ways of looking things. So, but I will say we do have customers where we're using Microsoft Defender in, but it feeds right into also our ransomware SOC tool sets. So we got the two combined.
Right. Because it's not necessarily a bad tool, but by itself, right, without any
Right. Oh,
alerting
it's
without a
improved
SOC.
greatly. It improved greatly. It used to not be something I'd use, but
Right.
it's
Yeah.
gotten better.
Yeah. Well, kind of speaking of that and all the things you got to manage, guys, this show is sponsored by Servacity Safe, where we manage backups. So with Servacity Safe, you can cut your support tickets in half and let us manage your backups. Servacity Safe includes daily testing of every single volume. So we also store your data in tamper-proof immutable storage. Most importantly, and really what makes us different from every other vendor out there, is our fully managed backups mean you don't have to babysit backups anymore, leaving you and your techs the time to focus and grow and scale your business. And in my opinion, do what is a differentiator for you. It's probably not managing backups. So if you're tired of dealing with failed backups, wasting time, or worried about the ability to restore, go to savasi.com/call. I'll be happy to have a conversation with you. Whether it makes a sense or not to do business, happy to have that conversation if that helps for any of you guys. So,
Can you hear me?
yes,
Did you
I'm here.
unmute
We're
me?
here, Wayne. We were testing this backstage, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna keep muting you accidentally. So, and Wayne, he's traveling, so he's got kind of a mobile setup with a ring light and all
Yeah.
kinds of cool stuff going on there. So I appreciate that. Yeah, it's one of the things we found is people are trying to do more with less, right? You're running a pretty lean team. So that's why we keep talking to more and more MSPs, because it's the people in the process, whether it's security or whether it's a backup process. I found not a lot of people have a lot of operational maturity or the people to pull it off, which basically means don't have regular testing. And with the information you're talking about with Congress, that's probably a little scarier than it used to be.
It is. Not only there, but what you're doing from just before we go into that, I want to say something about, you was talking about your system and immutable storage. That point for everyone, if you don't have immutable storage behind your backups, you need to do it because that leads into the question we're just talking about here. And you're looking at the, scary from the Congress side and things of that nature. But even take a look at simple things as cybersecurity insurance these days. The underwriters are asking, do you have a backup copy on immutable storage? Now it's not
Mm.
the 321 story, it's the 3211 story now, and that's becoming the standard is
Mm-hmm.
having a copy on immutable storage. So I think that's great what you're doing with your platform, making sure you got a copy on immutable storage because that's extremely important. It's going to help you meet the requirements of cybersecurity insurance and things of that nature. Um, the other point you was just talking about was, and this was in what our initial time we talked was, being a company of 8 and doing the amount of business we're doing, it is very important you have a process of procedure. You have workflows that allows you to automate what you're doing. So we're big about looking at the tool sets. We're always evaluating. One of the things I go to a lot of different events is looking at, even though we got a mature stack, I'm always looking how to make it better. Never quit. Yeah, change is tough in your process, but you have a core workflow, and then you want to look at how you're going to improve it. Just like I'm now working on improving the sales, the customer success manager, road mapping piece to how we present what we're doing, how we present budgeting to our customers so they can be proactive in doing the things we need them to go do. So look at every aspect. Look at how you can improve our process. And what we've also found is by doing those things, we reduce the actual amount of man hours we need to do work. So that's the reason why we're able to do so much with so few people and coming into it. But it also, when we hire somebody, we have it documented. It's a process and it's training. We
Mm-hmm.
hire somebody, the first 2 weeks they do is nothing but training on our workflow, on our process. So when they go
That's a big
in and start
difference.
working with a customer, they know exactly what to do and what happens
Mm-hmm.
going through that. Even from the sales process, when I close a deal and I mark it one, it automatically generates all the tickets to all the people, operations, customer service. Here's what's going down. So the billing and the invoicing goes, the onboarding gets cranked off, all that. We've really worked hard. It takes time to do that, but that's very important. If you're going to grow, you got to get that to where it's not all right here. If it's
Mm-hmm.
all right here, you're only going to grow as much as you can handle.
Yeah.
So that's extremely important.
Yeah. I just wanted to feature this comment from Morgan. So you're just always looking for change in every area, always hiring, always looking for the possibility of better tools. And then she says, change
Yep,
is scary. So,
it is. Change is always scary, and for different people, they do it different ways and they handle it. To me, change was not a scary thing. It's an opportunity. I look at change as an opportunity. It's an opportunity to be better. It's an opportunity to get to something I haven't achieved yet.
mm-hmm.
And part of being in business is the old saying, no risk, no reward. Well, don't do risk just for the sake of risk, but
Right.
calculated risk.
Mm-hmm.
Do your homework. Everything's a risk, but you got to do your homework and be willing to take that risk to grow. So sometimes change is just a necessity.
Right.
I'm
Right.
not a proponent of change for sake of change, but change because I've done calculated homework on what to go do and make that change and plan it in. Some of it's going to be painful to go off and do. One of the ones we're fixing to implement, it's going to actually adjust some of our workflow and is actually going to get one of the tools we're doing, replace it. But my whole team is 100% on board on that change because they see how it benefits all of us. So
Mm-hmm.
get your team involved. I'm not just doing it in a vacuum. I look at something, I see what's going on, then I present it to them. I let them work on it from their view. Then we come back together and going, yeah, this works. It solves all these different problems. Okay, that's a calculated risk of change to go off and do. You've
Right.
calculated the benefits. You calculated what the impact's going to be, who needs to do it, who all it affects, but they all are on board.
Right.
So that's when everything I bring back does not get approved. I don't force it down my team's throat. I bring it back. We look at it. If there's some things that say, no, we don't think we should do this, and here's why. Because I tell them, you can tell me no, but tell me why,
Right.
so we
Right.
can educate ourselves. And we do that, then you get buy-in from your team when it is something you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
And by doing it that way, it worked extremely well for us.
Nice. Yeah. Speaking of, we just had Lauren saying, I think that sets your business apart in productivity and in culture, the team being able to have an open conversation on things that
Mm-hmm.
may not be working. Surprising to me how many
Absolutely.
people don't want to have a candid conversation. Maybe their fear of being blamed, or just maybe the owner feels like they have to know everything.
To that point, and Lauren's point is whereas it's easy to say, it can be absolutely hard to do depending on who you are. What
Right.
you can't tell from this, I'm 6'4", 290. I'm a
Yeah.
big
Can't
guy.
tell. Can't tell.
I have a very boisterous, I mean, my voice carries, and I've never been accused of being, hard to hear. Um, and I always have to be conscious of is how my physical being and how I talk, and I am a type, and I'm positive. I'm always going, energetic. How that affects others around me, and so I have to really work to. It took me a long time to figure out how to talk with my people and make sure they're not intimidated by me.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, early on the business is where when I'd say, "Hey, what do y'all think about this?" They took it as I'm telling them to go do it. And they would go do it, and I'd have to go, "Well, no, no, no. I'm not asking you to do this.
Yeah.
I want your input," and they'd be afraid. So I had to work really hard. And I remember one of my engineers. I'll never forget this. We were sitting on a Monday morning meeting, and we was going everything, what's going on in the week, what's going to do it. And the Friday before, I had some free time, and I had my guys don't want me to put my hands in tech,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm a very technical guy, and to me, I've always used my hands in tech to keep me fresh because that allowed me to understand what tools my people needed and be able to support them.
Mm-hmm.
So I still do it. But that Friday afternoon, I got in, I saw there was a ticket there, and everybody was just swamped that day. It was like, Murphy's Law, I don't know, the moon and stuff aligned. It was just everybody was just losing their mind.
Right.
And so I just grabbed the ticket, went and worked on it, took care of it. And I grabbed another one, went and worked on it, took care of it, and didn't think nothing about it. And so at the end of our Monday morning meetings, I'd always say, "Hey, has anybody got any issues or they want to bring up? And we can discuss and figure out if we need to go take care of." And one of my texts, he goes, "Yeah, I got a problem." I said, "Okay, what's the problem?" He says, "If our CEO has to work on tickets on a Friday afternoon, then we need to hire a tech." And my first gut reaction was to say, "Well, wait a minute, guy. I was just trying to help out. Why you upside that?" And I stopped myself. I went, "This is opportunity." And I said, "You're 100% correct. I'll start the hiring process today." And went and hired. And that one little thing changed how the techs as a whole communicated with me
That's awesome.
because they brought it up and I didn't argue it. I went in, I agreed, and we went and we hired somebody. I didn't care what it was going to cost me. I was going to go hire that person and put them in because it gave me the opportunity to show that if they'll communicate, that's what I want. I'm here to help you. And it made a big change for us.
That's right.
And you got to find those times and
To get out of your own way. Uh-oh. May have a couple technical difficulties on the Wi-Fi at the hotel there, Wayne, if you can hear us. So hopefully we'll be able to get Wayne reconnected.
yeah,
There we
no,
go.
somewhat my banker was calling me. So
That's so funny. I was worried that Wi-Fi just ceased to exist or something.
no, it's like, oh, no, no, no. But hopefully you heard that where we could, but you got to find those times where your team is, you work hard. And I tell them, I got an open door policy. If you got a problem, you call me, whatever. I don't care, day, night, whatever. If you need something, I mean, if you got a problem at home and you need somebody to come over to help you, you call me. I try to really get that culture going.
Right.
And you got to seize those opportunities because it'll make a huge difference when you do.
That's right. Yeah. I wanted to feature one or two comments, and I have a question or two, but I know we're kind of running in on time. So if you guys have any last comments, please jump in now. Lauren says many businesses cripple their own growth and force their team to stay in processes that don't work or serve them anymore. So thank you for sharing that, Lauren. That's a really good point. Hopefully Wayne was kind of getting to that. And then we have a different Wayne who would love for you to define culture again. So I'm not sure if he heard it the first time and would like it redefined or is joining us, but love to hear. To me, what you were saying kind of defines that, but I would love to hear your answer to that, Wayne.
Yeah. The way I described it earlier when it comes in is, first, when I was trying to determine culture, Wayne, it was one of those things, what is it? What does it mean to me? And I attributed to my wife. She actually told me, says, "You're a family man. You care about everybody around you. Take care of family before you take care of yourself. And so you treat your folks the same way." So I started thinking about my business it's family to me. But what do I need out of this, and what does that mean? Well, communication is a big thing for me, and how you communicate is very big because if you communicate to your family the same way you communicate to the client, that's important. And so, like in my interview process, one of the first questions I ask is, "What do you like about your current job? What do you dislike about it?" And if they come in and they're all negative and coming in, "I hate this job, and my boss is blah blah blah, and this and that and this," that's one thing. It may be 100% correct. That's okay. But if a person answers is, "Well, the job and this functionality, this is what I like doing, but the company doesn't really give me ability to grow, and it comes like that. And I'm really looking for that place to grow and deal with this and have someone to communicate about a problem that'll work with me on that problem. Well, they just covered the same thing, but two different ways, and they understand how to communicate their point. To me, that's the person I want talking to a customer when a customer's pissed off.
Right.
Instead of getting confrontational, they look to how to communicate with them doing it. To me, that's part of the culture, is how you communicate. And then that feeds into how you uh, solve problems. And I ask them about how they're going to solve a problem. If it is, oh, I'm just going to ask, a senior guy to do it, and they tell me the answer, I go do it. But if they come in and they go into how they're going to research and do this, and then how they're going to get involved, a senior person, but I won't stay involved, so I learn from that to be able to do it myself next time. Okay, that's a culture thing to me. That's a culture of how they're going to work with the rest of the team. So that's how I defined it. But each of us got to define what your culture is and start with yourself. What's important for you and people around you, and how you want to treat them, how you want them to treat you, and build off that. And that's what's worked for me. Not everybody can do it the same way, but that's how I did it.
Great answer, Wayne. Tell me about, we didn't quite get into this. You started where you've got these super MSPs, they can pay crazy money. Everybody wants to keep their team. Not everybody is successful. So how do you keep them happy? How do you keep them motivated? And how do you keep them staying with you?
Well, that kind of goes into some of the things we were talking about earlier is uh, I want, when we hire someone, we got, like others, we got 401k. As a small company, we got 401k, major medical, do this. I pay half of the insurance. Actually, now I actually changed it. I think I'm paying 75% of the insurance, which there's a lot of small companies not able to do that and stuff like that. But I do guaranteed match on 401k. So all those different things, I got those set aside. But what's more important is I went away from the evaluation once a year raise standpoint, because it was always where it's subjective.
Mm-hmm.
And there's, to me, expectations both from both sides that are not reasonable, because it's just based on a period of time and subjective things. You did this, didn't do this. So we changed. And I actually didn't come up with this. I have some folks that I met, and they was explaining to what they did, and I kind of adopted part of what they did and tweaked it a little bit. But what we do when we hire someone, we explain to them, look, your growth here is 100% dependent upon you. And here's what we're going to do. We're going to give you the training. We build our own SharePoint site. We got a training deal. Here's your required training in the position. This is, you have to, and you
Mm-hmm.
got to get done. And you have to have that done before you do anything else. Then we have all this incentive training. Some of it's where with vendors to where we got our discounts that we get because we have the certain solution competencies and all that kind of stuff. And then other is incentives where on their job, they want to move that next level. If they go ahead and go get that testing done and get that training done and do that, and they're doing that as, when they're free time, whatever, we actually pay them incentives. Some things pay $25, some pay $100, some pay $500. They
Wow.
get that as a Visa card for being proactive. But as they want to progress, they're learning that knowledge, but then they're starting solving problems that are higher than the position they're in, and their customer sat is a certain level, and what they're doing with the team in proactive. We take all that. If in 3 months they've already progressed up, we're going to go ahead and bump them right then because they're doing the job.
Mm-hmm.
I'd rather do that than try to go hire someone. So we've got that process of building inside. And by doing that, they know we've got their back. We're going to invest in them. We're giving them a path to grow. Like we're saying, we're interviewing, they say there's no path for growth. I want them to grow. But we also tell them, hey, when you're growing and you look at this, how can we improve what we're doing better for the next person we're hiring? So now they're involved, they're engaged in that. And ever since we've done that, we haven't lost anybody.
Nice.
And our team works together tremendously better.
That's awesome. Well, I think I could talk to you about this all day long, Wayne. But I want to be a good steward of your
This is what
time.
happened the last time we talked.
Yeah, we got on a great conversation, and unfortunately, time and reality got in the way. So thank you for this. It looks like Lauren had dropped in a thank you as well. And one thing that I wanted to do
Most welcome.
is Morgan brought a great point, because I know you did serve our country. So I always appreciate it, and I always thank you for serving our country and doing the things that
Well,
I didn't have to do,
appreciate it.
so I could be with my family. And so, so I always remember, and I take that, I take that to heart. So thank you for your service, both for our country and here. Tell us how folks could get connected to you. How should they plug into you or be connected to you?
You, yeah, you can reach out to me on LinkedIn. Very well. Yeah, look for Wayne Hunter with AvTek Solutions, AvTek Solutions. Also, you can go to our website, avteksolutions.com. One of the things that we're doing, I've been involved, like I was telling you, because my DoD background and Navy and stuff like this. When CMMC come out, I actually got involved in that. And there's me and about 19 others got together, and we collaborated, and we wrote a book on CMMC 2.0. And it's actually coming out March 30th. So you can go to the website, sign up for it, go and look at it. All proceeds of the book is going to St. Jude's. We're not taking a dime off of it.
That's awesome.
Um, but it's one thing I like, giving back and educating and doing those things. So anybody's got questions, I'm an open book. Go ahead and reach out on LinkedIn. That's probably the quickest and easiest way, is on LinkedIn. And reach out to me. We can touch base. Love to have a conversation with anybody.
You guys heard it here. Get connected to him on LinkedIn. He's got a really interesting new book that goes not in his pocket, but to benefit St. Jude. So that's awesome. Continue to do that, guys. Thank you so much, Wayne. This has been amazing. Guys, before you leave, next show, 2 weeks from today at 2 p.m. Eastern, we're going to have Marcus Olson, and it's quite possibly the fastest growing MSP in the entire nation. So make sure to join us 2 weeks from today. We're going to talk about growth, and we're going to talk about the future, some controversial topics of where the industry is going and where we may not be prepared for it to go yet. So always an interesting guest. Guys, thank you so much for being here.